Hi everyone, and welcome to my channel. I'm Angie, a mixed media textile artist, and I love sharing my art, my process, and ideas that may help you in your art. In today's video, I will be sharing a step-by-step tutorial on how to make a permanent silkscreen using heat transfer vinyl. Now, traditional silkscreens, I found them to be a little bulky, so for the past few years, I've been looking for an alternative. What I've settled on is using a simple plywood frame, sheer curtain fabric, and heat transfer vinyl. If that sounds like something you'd be interested in, stick around and I will show you step by step on how to make your very own silkscreen using heat transfer vinyl. To get started, you will need a few items. First, you will need your heat transfer vinyl, and I will put a link in the description box as to where I get mine. And then you will need something to cut it with. I usually use my Silhouette Cameo machine, but if you don't have a Silhouette Cameo or any other type of cutting machine, such as a Cricut or a Brother Scan and Cut, you can use a simple craft knife. I use this a lot when I'm doing very simple designs because by the time I pull out the silhouette, I can have it cut with the craft knife. Now to make the frame, you will need some 1/4 inch plywood cut to the dimensions of the outside of your frame. And the way you figure that is you want to take the dimension of your design and add 4 to 5 inches in both directions, because we will be cutting out the inside of this, so you will need some allowance for your frame itself and just a little bit of allowance between the design and the frame. You will also need some sheer curtain fabric. You can either buy sheer curtains at the thrift store, or you can go to the fabric store and buy the fabric. And the fabric needs to be cut about 2 inches larger than the outside dimension of your wood frame. You will need some scissors, some double-sided carpet tape, and this is what we use to attach the sheer fabric to the frame. And you will need some Gorilla Tape to tape the entire frame to make it waterproof. I like to cut my own frames because I have complete control of what size they are. But if you prefer not to, you can use a wooden picture frame. And this is what I did before I started cutting my frames during my testing phase with this. Now to cut your own frame, you will need a few power tools. You will need a drill with a 1/2 inch spade bit, some sandpaper, a clamp to hold the frame to the table, and a jigsaw. The first step to making the frame is to draw a border around the frame anywhere from 1.25 inches to 2 inches, and then to drill holes in each of the 4 corners. I've already drilled 3 holes, but when I drill these holes, I like to get them as close to my border line as possible. To do that, I take the width of the drill bit, in this case 1/2 inch, I take half of that, 1/4 inch, and mark in 1/4 inch from each line. And this is where I will place the point of the drill bit when I start drilling the hole. To drill the holes, take a piece of scrap wood and place under the frame where you will be drilling. This gives you a cleaner cut on the other side, and it stops you from drilling into your table. So place the point of the drill bit on the mark that you made. In this case, it was 1/4 inch from each of the lines, and then drill the hole. Once the holes are drilled, it's time to cut out the inside of the frame. Go ahead and clamp the frame to the table, and we will be using the holes to place our jigsaw blade in, and those holes will allow us to get into those corners nice and neat as we cut around on our line. I try to stay on the line as much as possible, but if I go off a little bit, it's really not that big of a deal. When you get to the corner, just stop once you get into the middle of the hole, and take the frame, reposition it, put the blade back through the hole, and continue cutting. Once you've cut completely around the frame, you can remove that inside piece, and if it's large enough, you can save it to make a smaller frame. The next step is to apply the double-sided tape so we can attach the sheer fabric, but before doing that, give your frame a once-over with the sandpaper. Now take and apply the double-sided tape to all 4 sides of the frame. Trim off any excess if needed, and then you will be ready to apply the sheer fabric to the frame using the double-sided tape. Make sure the sheer fabric is ironed so that you don't have any wrinkles or any excess folds in it, because if you do, this will show up in your printing. So make sure to iron out all those excess wrinkles and folds. Now apply the fabric to the frame by removing the release paper on the double-sided tape on one side, and apply the fabric, making sure you burnish it down really good, because when we go to apply the other side, we will be pulling this tightly and you don't want it to come loose. Once you have this side burnished down very tightly, take the frame and turn it around and clamp it to your table or secure it in some manner. Remove the release paper from the opposite side and take the sheer fabric, starting in the center, pull it as tightly as you can, working your way from the center out to each end. As you pull the fabric, burnish it as you go. So pull it starting from the middle, working out toward each end, pulling and burnishing it as you go. And once you get it all attached, burnish it down really good. Pull the release paper from the third side, clamp it to the table, and repeat the stretching and burnishing process. So starting in the middle, working your way out to each end, stretch and burnish down. Starting in the middle, work to the other end, stretch and burnish down until that side is completely burnished into place. Now turn the frame around and clamp the third side down to the table so that you can do the final side. And you know the drill. Start in the center, work your way out to the end, pull as tightly as you can, burnish into place until it's all secured, very nice and tight. After the sheer fabric is nice and secure, you can trim away the excess, and the next step would be to attach the vinyl stencil to the sheer fabric following the manufacturer's instruction. When cutting the vinyl stencil, I like to make it just a little smaller so that there is some space between the stencil and the wood, and then I go ahead and press the stencil to the sheer fabric, and I like to use a press cloth. That may not be necessary, but it is something that I prefer to do so that I don't put the hot iron directly onto the vinyl. I continue to press the vinyl to the sheer fabric, stopping occasionally to check and see if it's adhered completely. If not, then I just keep pressing and pressing and pressing until I'm sure it's completely adhered to the sheer fabric. At that point, I will take and peel up one corner of the release paper, slowly peeling it away from the vinyl, all the while checking to make sure that the vinyl is secure to the fabric. Once I've completely peeled away the release paper, I will take the press cloth and the iron and give it one final press, because once I start screen printing, I don't want that vinyl to come away. Once the vinyl is securely attached, now it's time to take and cover the space between the vinyl and the frame and all the exposed wood of the frame with Gorilla Tape. This will give you a well when you're printing, a space for you to put your paint when you go to print, and by covering the exposed wood, it will help your frame last longer. It won't get damaged by the water as fast. So I take and cut the Gorilla Tape, cut or tear the Gorilla Tape. The first side that I'm doing is the side opposite of where I attached the sheer fabric. This side has a little bit of an indentation, which is the thickness of the wood. And for this side, I like to cut the Gorilla Tape to fit exactly within the opening. So I will cover all four sides with the Gorilla Tape fitting within the opening, and some of it will extend outside of the opening, and then I will cover the remaining parts of this side with Gorilla Tape so that all of the exposed wood is covered. And if there are any little gaps in the corners, be sure and go back and cover those with Gorilla Tape. You don't want water getting into those corners when you start cleaning the screen. After doing the first side, I will turn it over and then do the second side. Again, I'll completely cover all of the exposed wood. This time I cover the wood first and then come back and fill in the space between the vinyl and the frame. Once I've completely covered everything with the Gorilla Tape, I give it a once over to make sure that I don't have any areas of exposed wood. After allowing the Gorilla Tape to cure for 24 hours, your heat transfer vinyl silkscreen is ready to use. Well, thank you for watching this step-by-step tutorial on how to make a silkscreen using heat transfer vinyl. I hope you found the information useful, and I'd like to hear what you think about this method. Leave me your comments below. If you enjoyed this video, give it a big thumbs up, and while you're at it, go ahead and subscribe. And you may also want to check out some other videos that I have on my channel that will be showing up on the screen soon. I hope to see you back here again next time, but until then, have a beautiful day.